I know that you know that castling the king is a very good way to keep your king safe in the opening, but what many people don't know and what possibly you might not know is when exactly is the perfect time to castle the king. And in today's episode of the hashtag Ask a Chessmaster show, I'll be answering that question coming straight up. To many of you, you might be thinking, Sean, this is easy. I know when to castle. I learned that when I was a beginner player. But surprisingly, today's video isn't actually a beginner video, but actually one for intermediate players, as I see this mistake happen way too often, in which people rush to castle when there is no need to castle, and when instead there is something much better to do. So what do I mean? Let me give you guys a very good question before I show you a position that basically proves my point. Why do we castle to begin with? Pause your videos, think about it for a few seconds. Think to yourself, why do we castle in chess? And if you really do think about it, there are generally two reasons why we castle. The first one being to keep our king safe, and the second being to connect our two rooks together so that they can help each other out and so our rooks can become active. Now let's disregard the second point for now. Let's think about the first point. So we castle to keep our king safe, which means there's generally something that is very dangerous or something that might be upsetting our opponent might be doing to us. So let me show you this. This is a very common opening that many people play, the king's pawn opening, especially in the beginner slash intermediate levels. In this position, a lot of people I see playing as white like to make the mistake of just castling. Now you might be saying to me, Sean, castling isn't a bad move, and if we were to check the engine, of course, castling is not a it's not a bad move, but it's just not a very good move. And there's a difference between what I call a good move, bad move, and very importantly, a useless move in chess. And this useless move concept, I will be making a video in the future, but it's a very important concept if you want to improve from a beginner and intermediate player into more of that advanced levels, that 1800 rating level. Because just because you're not playing a blunder, a major mistake, and just blundering everything away, doesn't mean you're actually playing good chess. It could mean you're just keeping everything equal, but you're not actually doing anything, which is what this castling move does in this position over here. It castles, which is not bad, but it doesn't do anything. Instead, we rather play this move pawn c3. Why do we rather play pawn c3? As many of you guys know, we're going for a plan of controlling the center. Our opponent might mess up because he's a beginner. He might play d6, and all of a sudden, we have a massive center in, well, the center. And after something like this, white is already having a huge advantage. Even though he's not yet castled, he can always castle in the future. And this is the point I want you guys to understand. White's king in this position is not under attack. It's nowhere close to being attacked. There's not even a knight on f6 to have been thrown in knight g4, which doesn't do anything, to be honest. But the point is proven. White's king is not under attack, which makes me ask you guys, should white castle in this position if there's no fear, no threats against his king? And the answer is definitely not, because of the two requirements, or any of the two actually fulfilled in this scenario. Is the king under attack, so we need to castle, get the king out of the way, or do we need to connect the rooks? Obviously, both requirements are not met, and therefore castling is just a big no-no and just a big waste of time. Instead, what we should be doing is, following one of my other videos ideas in which we think to ourselves, if we have nothing better to do, sure, casting might be a good idea, it can never hurt, but why not just spend the time right now to think of a plan that you want to make? C3 makes sense because we can go for d4 ideas. If you play c3 to go for a queenside attack with b4, a4, sure, it's not the best plan, but it's definitely better than castling because at least you have an idea of what to do. Let me show you an example, something that I learned when I was climbing my way up from 1600 to 2000-ish level. I used to play I still do play the Kali Zucratori. And the Kali Zucratori is an opening that looks like this. It's a system, which means it doesn't really matter what black plays, so I'm just going to be playing random things. So in this position, what I used to do back in the day was I used to just castle in this position and just say, you know what, I castle my king, life is good. But as many of you guys know in the Kali Zucratori, something that I generally teach is that your piece development and your piece placement is much more important than your king castling. The king castling does keep your king safe, and that's good and all, but it doesn't actually improve your position very much. In this position over here, for example, I don't really want my opponent to move his knight to e4 right now, So I'm going to play knight bd2 to first of all develop a knight, but also make sure our opponent can move his knight here. Let's say our opponent plays c5, putting pressure against our mostly d4 pawn in this position. So I think to myself, can I just castle? Yeah, probably. Castling's probably not that bad. But I don't want my opponent to play pawn c4. So what do I do instead? I do the very simple pawn b3. Why? So I can put my bishop on b2, stop c4 ideas. Castling is not important. I want to create my plan, follow my plan, and also stop my opponent's ideas instead of just castling. Now, if my opponent was just, just caveman attacking my king, bing, boom, 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 there are some positions in which your plan is just to castle, and if you can castle, then you just win the game because your opponent has sacrificed many pieces, all you care about is king's safety. But in 99% of the positions you're playing, castling is not that big of a priority, and you should not really focus on it. Let's say your opponent plays castling here, which is generally not a very good move, because it doesn't really do anything. Bishop b2, knight bd7, and then only now in this position, now that I see, all my pieces are developed, my plan is to obviously attack the king side, only now should I castle, because I have nothing better to do, and this can actually help my plan in the future because I'm trying to go for knight e5, f4 ideas with the ideas of rook cliffs to attack my opponent's king. So you can see that how castling is even part of my plan, but it's only the final step because it's my king was not under attack. Now let me show you the reverse. You never want to castle too late when things are happening and there are basically explosions and pieces running at your king, because then it might be too late to castle. So a good example is just, let's just say we're playing a Scotch Gambit on the black side over here. Another opening I really do enjoy playing. Knight f3, knight c6, pawn d4, captures, bishop c4. And in this position, you can see that white is sacrificing material so that he can have initiative, he can have temples against our king, and so he can attack us very easily. Let's say he checks us over here. We check him over there. Pawn c3, we win yet another pawn, and he just castles. In this position, you might be thinking, Sean, can we capture another pawn? But if we capture this pawn, all of a sudden, our opponent has two amazing bishops. Our king is nowhere close to castling, so this might be a little bit dangerous for us. So instead, what I would try to do in this position is try to castle because I see there are threats against my king. My opponent's plan is to attack my king. Therefore, castling might be the best idea. So let's say we play knight e7, trying to castle. And yeah, as you can see, this is a perfect time. Let's say our opponent just decides to capture the knight. Now would be a perfect time to castle as our opponent is attacking us and we want to get out of harm's way, because as long as we survive an attack, then guess what? We win because we're ahead in material. So hopefully this summarizes everything that I wanted to say today. If you guys have any questions, make sure to tell me in the comment section below. And make sure to always ask yourself something very important is why you're making a move. If you're just playing a move because some teacher, some master, some player told you, oh, do this because it's a good idea, always ask yourself why it's a good idea. And you'll be able to come up with the good moves, good ideas without anybody having to help you. And so you can be proud of not only the moves you make, but the ideas you have as well. If you enjoyed today's video, I totally recommend watching that chess video over there, in which I teach you guys how to analyze your own chess games so you can become a chess master like me one day. I'll see you guys in the next video.